I was under the conference table fixing a loose AV cable when she walked in and tossed her designer coat at me. "Handle the equipment setup and get some decent coffee brewing," she said without even looking at me properly. "The board meeting is for executives only, people with actual credentials." The coat landed right on my back as I crouched there with my screwdriver. I'm Dan Parker, 49 years old, and I built TechFlow Dynamics from nothing in my garage 5 years ago. Our supply chain software now runs logistics for companies across Texas. We've got 78 employees, and we're valued at $8.2 million. And this woman just told me I didn't belong in my own boardroom. I stood up slowly, her coat in my hands, and looked at her. Tall, perfectly dressed, with that kind of confidence you get when nobody ever questions if you belong. She was already checking her phone, dismissing me completely. "Actually," I said quietly, "I was just making sure the presentation system works properly for today's meeting." She glanced up briefly. "Well, make it quick. We're starting soon." Then she paused, like she just remembered something. "Oh, and when you see Dan Parker, tell him Victoria Hamilton is here." Victoria Hamilton, the new VP of Operations our board insisted we needed. Former McKinsey consultant, Harvard MBA, the whole package. I'd spent weeks interviewing candidates because the investors said we needed sophisticated leadership to scale properly. After looking at 15 resumes, we settled on this woman. Impressive credentials, great references, exactly what the board wanted to see. "I'll make sure he knows," I said, walking out with her coat. I could have corrected her right there. Could have made a scene. But something told me to wait, to see what else she'd reveal about herself. You don't build a company from nothing without learning when to speak up and when to watch. This felt like a watching moment. I went to my office, hung her coat in my closet, and texted my cousin Andy. He's been our operations manager since day one, back when we were just me and 2 guys coding in my garage. "Meeting in 5, bring the quarterly projections to the boardroom." Then I texted Patricia Davis from Vertex Capital, running a few minutes late. "Please have everyone take seats." I took 3 minutes to think it through. What did this tell me about her? In my experience, how someone treats people they think are below them tells you everything about their character. And Victoria Hamilton had just shown me hers. When I walked into the boardroom, conversation stopped. 8 people sat around the mahogany table, including Victoria, who was mid-story about some consulting triumph at her previous firm. She looked confused when Andy handed me the presentation remote. "Sorry I'm late," I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. "I believe introductions are in order. I'm Dan Parker, founder and CEO, and you must be Victoria Hamilton, our new VP of Operations." The look on her face was something else. Confusion, then dawning horror, then a forced recovery. To her credit, she bounced back fast. "A misunderstanding," she said with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "My apologies, Dan." The meeting went smoothly. I presented our expansion strategy, answered questions about our growth plans, got the approvals we needed. Professional, focused, like nothing had happened. But everyone in that room understood what had just been established. After the meeting, Victoria approached me with her hand extended. "Dan, I want to sincerely apologize for earlier. I made an incorrect assumption." I shook her hand firmly. "Yes, you did. Your coat is in my office. I feel terrible about it. It won't happen again." "I'm sure it won't," I said. "We have our one-on-one scheduled for tomorrow morning. We can discuss expectations then." That night, I called my old friend Tim Hughes, who runs a manufacturing company outside Dallas. "You're not going to believe what happened today," I started. "Please tell me you fired her," Tim said after I finished the story. "Not yet. I want to understand the pattern first. Is this who she really is, or was it just a bad first impression?" "Dan, guys like us know the type. She thinks you're some garage mechanic who got lucky. She'll undermine you every chance she gets." Maybe. Or maybe I'm giving myself time to decide the best response. The truth was straightforward. I'd fought too hard to build this company to make impulsive decisions, even justified ones. Firing our brand new VP without documenting a pattern would create board problems I didn't need. But more than that, I wanted to understand exactly what kind of problem I was dealing with. The next morning, Victoria arrived 5 minutes early for our 9 a.m. meeting, knocking on my door with uncharacteristic humility. "Come in," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. "Coffee?" "No, thank you," she replied, clearly uncomfortable. I studied her for a moment. She had that executive presence thing down cold, confident posture, articulate speech, the kind of belonging that comes from fancy credentials and family connections. Yesterday was unfortunate, I began, but it happens. What matters now is how we move forward. Relief flooded her features. I completely agree. It was an honest mistake. Tell me, I said, leaning forward slightly, what made you assume I was maintenance staff? The question caught her off guard. I was expecting the CEO to be in the boardroom already, I suppose. The meeting wasn't scheduled to start for another 20 minutes. Right. I just made an assumption. It was wrong and I apologize. For the next hour, we discussed her onboarding plan, responsibilities, and immediate priorities. She was engaged, offering thoughtful insights about operational inefficiencies she'd already noticed. Had yesterday been simply an unfortunate first impression? Over the next 2 weeks, the answer became clear. It wasn't. In our first executive team meeting, she interrupted our marketing director 3 separate times, talking over her presentation about our Q4 campaigns. But when Scott Murphy from engineering spoke, Victoria listened attentively, taking detailed notes and asking thoughtful follow-up questions. During client calls, she routinely directed technical questions to male team members, even when I was clearly the most qualified person to answer. She'd lean forward, gesture toward one of the guys, and say something like, "Scott can probably give you the technical details on that integration." In one particularly obvious moment, she stepped in front of me to shake hands with a potential investor from Dallas, positioning herself as the primary contact. "Victoria Hamilton, VP of Operations," she said with a bright smile. "I'll be your main point of contact moving forward." Each incident was subtle enough to seem accidental if you weren't paying attention. But I was paying attention. I started keeping notes. Date, time, witnesses, exactly what happened. Old habit from my engineering days. Document everything, analyze the patterns. The pattern was clear. Victoria treated men as competent professionals and women as support staff. She treated people with fancy degrees as equals and people without them as obstacles. Most telling of all, she treated me like someone who'd gotten lucky instead of someone who'd built something. Then came the strategy session where everything clicked into place. We were discussing our enterprise sales approach when Victoria leaned back in her chair, interrupting our sales director mid-sentence. "What we really need," she announced, "is to pivot toward larger clients. The current approach is too fragmented for companies at our stage." This directly contradicted the strategy I'd outlined the previous week, the one that had been working for us for 3 years. "Interesting," I said evenly. "What data are you basing that on?" She smiled with that practiced confidence consultants perfect. "My experience at McKinsey. We saw this pattern repeatedly with companies at your stage." She'd almost said your stage again, like she was observing us from above instead of being part of the team. "I'd like to see the analysis supporting this recommendation," I said. "Can you have it on my desk by tomorrow?" Her confidence flickered for just a moment. Of course. That analysis never showed up. Instead, the next day, she forwarded me an article about enterprise sales strategies with some passages highlighted. Someone else's work presented as justification for her position. That evening, I called Andy into my office. "I need you to do something quietly. Start tracking every meeting Victoria schedules, especially with board members or investors." Andy's eyebrows went up. "You think she's going around you?" "I think she's building relationships that bypass me. Just watch and document." Andy had been with me since the beginning. My cousin, my first hire, now our operations manager. He understood the company's DNA better than anyone. And Dan? The engineering team mentioned she's been asking weird questions about our proprietary algorithms. Technical stuff way beyond her operational role. I nodded slowly. Keep me posted on that too. 3 days later, Andy forwarded me something that confirmed what I suspected. Victoria had scheduled a lunch with James Williamson from Highland Group without mentioning it to me. The calendar invitation said preliminary discussion of strategic options for TechFlow Dynamics. Strategic options for my company, without me in the room. I stared at that email for a long time. Strategic options usually meant one of two things: selling the company or replacing the leadership. Either way, she was positioning herself as the solution to problems she was creating. That night I barely slept, but by morning I had a plan. Not to fire her. That would be too easy and wouldn't solve the real problem. No, I needed something that would expose her true character while protecting my company and team. The next day, I scheduled a company-wide meeting. "I have an exciting announcement," I told the assembled team. The board has approved funding for a new executive position, Chief Strategy Officer. This role will spearhead our next-generation products and represent TechFlow at major industry events. Victoria sat up straighter, obvious interest in her eyes. This is a critical leadership role, I continued, reporting directly to me with significant visibility to the board and key partners. I'll be conducting interviews starting next month. I paused, meeting Victoria's gaze directly. The ideal candidate will have deep understanding of our technology, our culture, and most importantly, our people. I expect several strong internal candidates. The message was crystal clear. This was exactly the kind of high-visibility position she wanted. However, I added, anyone interested in the CSO role will need to complete our new executive development program first. 3 weeks of immersion across all company functions, no exceptions. After the meeting, Victoria practically sprinted to my office. Dan, that new position sounds fascinating. I'd love to discuss it further. Of course. Why don't we talk about it during our next one-on-one? I'd be very interested in your thoughts on the role. Our meeting the following week was completely different from our previous sessions. Victoria arrived with a sleek presentation titled Strategic Innovation Roadmap, complete with market analysis, competitive positioning, and growth projections. I took the liberty of drafting some initial thoughts, she said, opening her laptop with obvious enthusiasm. For 30 minutes, she outlined her vision for the CSO role. Some ideas were genuinely smart. She hadn't climbed the consulting ladder without real talent. Others showed she fundamentally misunderstood what made our company successful. This is thorough, I said when she finished. You've clearly put serious thought into this. I believe I'm uniquely positioned for this role, Dan. My consulting background gives me the strategic perspective, while my time here has given me operational insight. About that executive development program, I said, sliding a folder across the desk. Here's the detailed curriculum. She opened it and scanned the contents. Her enthusiasm dimmed as she read. Week 1, Warehouse and Shipping Operations, Customer Service Rotation. Week 2, Technical Support, Quality Control Processes. Week 3, Facilities Management, Administrative Functions. She looked up, trying to hide her dismay. This seems quite extensive for someone at my level. It's comprehensive, I corrected, and absolutely required for the CSO position. Whoever takes this role needs to understand our business from the ground up, not just strategy, but actual implementation. I watched the calculation play across her face. 3 weeks of work she clearly considered beneath her versus the prestige and visibility of the new title. When would this start? She finally asked. Next Monday. Monday morning, Victoria showed up to our warehouse wearing a business suit and heels. Our warehouse manager, Carlos, took one look at her outfit and shook his head. We'll need to get you some safety gear, he said. Steel-toed boots, safety vest. Can't have you on the floor dressed like that. Victoria's smile was strained. I'm just observing today, learning the processes. Nope, Carlos said firmly. Dan's instructions were clear. You're working alongside the team, not watching from the sidelines. By 10 a.m., I was getting reports. Victoria spent most of her time on phone calls, claiming urgent matters that required her immediate attention. When she did engage with warehouse operations, she asked questions like, how long until this process is automated? And, what's the ROI on manual sorting? Carlos pulled me aside at lunch. She's not learning anything, Dan. Keeps talking about efficiency improvements and asking when we can replace people with technology. The team's picking up on it. Tuesday wasn't better. Victoria showed up for customer service training but spent the morning in the conference room on video calls. When our customer service manager, Lisa, tried to get her to actually take support calls, Victoria said she needed to understand the strategic overview first. She took exactly one call, Lisa reported to me that evening. Customer had a simple billing question. She transferred him to 3 different people before someone could help him. Then she said the whole system needed to be streamlined. Wednesday morning, I found Victoria in the executive conference room on yet another video call with someone I didn't recognize. When she saw me, she quickly ended the call. Victoria, you're supposed to be with the engineering team this week. Dan, I need to be realistic about time management. I can learn what I need about these operations without spending every hour on the floor. There are strategic matters that require attention. What strategic matters? She gestured vaguely. Market research, competitive analysis. The kind of work that actually moves the company forward. That did it. The kind of work that moves this company forward, I said slowly, is understanding how we deliver value to customers. That happens in the warehouse, on customer service calls, and on the engineering floor, not in conference rooms. Dan, with respect, I've managed teams at organizations 3 times this size. I understand operational principles. This exercise feels like busy work. Then maybe you're not the right fit for the CSO role. Her expression shifted quickly. I didn't say that. I'm committed to completing the program. I just think we could be more efficient about it. The program runs for 3 weeks, as designed, no shortcuts. But she was already taking shortcuts. Andy had been keeping track, and the pattern was clear. Victoria was showing up late, leaving early, and spending most of her time on phone calls and mysterious meetings. More concerning was what Scott Murphy told me that Thursday. She's asking very specific questions about our core algorithms, Scott said. Not operational questions. Technical implementation details. She wanted to know about our data processing methods, our predictive models, even our server architecture. Did you give her access? She said she needed it for strategic planning. I gave her read-only access to our technical documentation. But Dan, she's downloaded over 20 gigabytes of files. That's our entire technical library. That evening, I had Andy pull Victoria's access logs. The numbers were staggering. She'd downloaded implementation guides, source code comments, proprietary algorithm documentation, even our client integration specifications. None of it had anything to do with operations or strategy. This isn't research, Andy said, reviewing the logs. This looks like someone gathering intelligence. The next morning, I got a call from Patricia Davis at Vertex Capital. Dan, Victoria reached out requesting a private meeting to discuss some concerns about operational direction. I wanted to give you a heads up before I respond. What kind of concerns? She mentioned gaps in technical leadership and strategic vision. Said she had some recommendations for addressing them. My blood pressure spiked. Did she specify what these gaps were? Nothing concrete. She said she preferred to discuss it in person, away from internal politics. Internal politics. That's how she was framing my leadership to our investors. Patricia, I appreciate you calling me directly. Would you mind holding off on that meeting until after our board meeting next week? Of course. Is everything all right? Just want to make sure we're all aligned on company direction. That weekend, I spent Saturday going through everything Andy and I had documented. Email logs showing unauthorized investor communications. Access records showing massive technical document downloads. Testimony from multiple department heads about her dismissive attitude and lack of engagement. The picture was crystal clear. Victoria wasn't trying to learn our business or improve our operations. She was positioning herself to replace me while gathering our intellectual property for reasons I could only speculate about. Sunday evening, I called Tim Hughes. Remember what you said about guys like us recognizing the type? Yeah. You figured out what she's up to? She's been downloading our entire technical library while telling investors I'm not capable of scaling the company. Classic corporate takeover playbook. What's your next move? Board meetings Tuesday. I'm going to lay out everything we've documented. Let the board see exactly what kind of leader they brought in. You think they'll support you? They better. Otherwise, I built this company for someone else to steal. Monday morning, Victoria skipped the final day of her development program entirely. When I asked Andy where she was, he showed me another calendar entry. Lunch with James Williamson from Highland Group. Strategic partnership discussion, Andy read from the invitation. She's not even trying to hide it anymore. That afternoon, I called a special board meeting for the next morning. Urgent operational matter, I told Patricia. Need everyone there. Victoria showed up to work Tuesday morning dressed for battle. Power suit, confident demeanor, ready to present herself as the solution to whatever problems she'd been manufacturing. She had no idea what was coming. Ready for the board meeting? She asked, passing my office. Absolutely, I replied. I think it's going to be very enlightening for everyone involved. The conference room filled at 9 a.m. sharp. All board members present plus Victoria and myself. I'd prepared everything the night before. Documents, access logs, testimony from department heads, a complete timeline of Victoria's behavior since day one. As everyone took their seats, Victoria positioned herself prominently at the table, clearly expecting to play a major role in the discussion. She was about to get her wish, just not the way she expected. Before we discuss our Q4 projections, I began, I need to address a serious operational concern that's come to our attention. The room went quiet. Victoria shifted in her seat but kept her confident expression. Scott, could you explain what your team discovered last week? Scott opened his laptop and connected to the presentation screen. We identified unusual access patterns to our proprietary technical documentation. Someone downloaded over 20 gigabytes of core intellectual property, including algorithm implementations and client integration specifications. James Williamson leaned forward. Are we talking about a security breach? Not external, Scott clarified. These downloads used authorized executive credentials, but the access patterns don't match normal job responsibilities. Whose credentials? Asked Patricia Davis. Scott glanced at me. I nodded. Executive-level access assigned to Victoria Hamilton. Every eye turned to Victoria. She maintained her composure perfectly. I've been conducting strategic research to better understand our competitive positioning, she said smoothly. As we discussed, I'm preparing recommendations for the CSO role. This required understanding our technical capabilities. Victoria, I said, Scott hasn't mentioned yet that some of the documentation you accessed was modified specifically for your credentials. Her confident mask slipped slightly. Modified how? Fingerprinted, Scott explained. Small alterations that wouldn't affect functionality but would be identifiable if the code appeared elsewhere. Standard security practice for high-value IP. The implication hung in the air. Victoria's face flushed. Are you suggesting I was stealing company information? That's ridiculous. I was doing exactly what you asked, preparing for additional responsibilities. I slid folders across the table to each board member. Let me provide some context. These contain documentation spanning Victoria's entire time with us. Patricia opened her folder first. Email communications with board members, access logs, and testimony from department managers. Additionally, I continued, we've documented her complete refusal to participate in the executive development program she agreed to complete. Victoria's voice rose. That program was busy work. I don't need to spend 3 weeks doing manual labor to understand strategic operations. Manual labor, I repeated. You mean understanding how we actually deliver value to customers? James was scanning his folder. Victoria, this shows you scheduled meetings with multiple board members without informing Dan, including lunch yesterday to discuss strategic options for the company. I was providing objective assessment of organizational needs. That's what you hired me for. No, Patricia said firmly. We hired you to strengthen operations, not to evaluate leadership behind the founder's back. Andy, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. I can provide additional context. Victoria consistently arrived late to development rotations, spent most of her time on phone calls, and showed no interest in learning our actual processes. When our warehouse manager tried to engage her, she asked about replacing workers with automation. Our customer service team reported similar issues, I added. She took exactly 1 support call in 2 days, transferred the customer to 3 different people, then declared the whole system needed overhauling. Victoria stood abruptly. This is character assassination. You're threatened by someone who actually understands how to scale a business. You can't run a company like a garage forever. The room went dead silent. Like a garage? James repeated slowly. Victoria realized her mistake immediately. I mean, the operational approach needs sophistication to reach the next level. The next level of what? Patricia asked. We're profitable, growing, and our clients love us. What exactly needs fixing? Market positioning, competitive strategy, professional management standards. Victoria was flailing now. Companies at this scale require experienced leadership with proper credentials. Proper credentials, I said quietly. Like yours? Yes. Harvard MBA, McKinsey experience. The kind of background that commands investor confidence. The kind that looks good on paper but can't handle a day in our warehouse? Her professional mask was completely gone now. Be realistic, Dan. You built this from nothing, which is admirable. But scaling requires different skills. Skills you don't have. Patricia closed her folder. Victoria, would you step out for a few minutes? We'd like to discuss this privately. After Victoria left, the board discussion was brief. The evidence was overwhelming, and her final outburst had confirmed everything I'd documented. Unanimous decision. James announced when Victoria returned. Your employment with TechFlow Dynamics is terminated immediately, effective today. Victoria's composure cracked completely. This is a massive mistake. You're choosing garage mentality over professional expertise. Don't come crying when you need real leadership. We have real leadership, Patricia said coolly. It built this company from nothing and earned our trust through results, not credentials. Security escorted Victoria out. She grabbed her designer coat from my office but left behind the laptop containing all those downloaded files. Files that would now serve as evidence if she tried to use our IP elsewhere. That afternoon, word spread through the office quickly. I didn't need to make an announcement. News like this travels fast in a close-knit team. Carlos from the warehouse stopped by my office around 4 p.m., heard what happened in the board meeting. The team wanted you to know, we appreciate you having our backs. Always, I said. That's not negotiable. Lisa from customer service poked her head in. She was asking strange questions about our client database. Should have mentioned it sooner. You couldn't have known. But thanks for letting me know now. By the end of the day, I had a clearer picture. Victoria hadn't just been undermining me with the board. She'd been gathering intelligence across multiple departments, asking questions that went far beyond operational oversight. That evening, Andy and I sat in the empty office, reviewing everything that had happened. Think she was working for a competitor? Andy asked. Maybe. Or maybe she just wanted to position herself to take over. Either way, she's gone. Board meeting went exactly like you planned. Not planned, just prepared. There's a difference. Andy grinned. Remind me never to cross you. I laughed. Just don't throw coats at me and we'll be fine. 3 months later, we hired a new VP of operations. Someone who spent their first week working alongside every department, learning our processes before suggesting any changes. Someone who understood that good leadership means serving the team, not the other way around. Victoria had taught us something valuable, not about scaling or strategy, but about character, about the difference between credentials and competence, between confidence and arrogance. She was gone by 5 p.m. that day. The team knew they were protected. We got back to work, and that was the last laugh.